influence. Thank you. And be guided by results of the survey. So that's what we decided before. And so we asked a number of questions around what did people want. The most popular thing was around how to broaden influence that we have. Then about learning from other groups. Social justice and climate change was quite high up. Same was planning coordinated action and how to encourage young people. So we're going to try and incorporate that into the workshop that we're doing. Other things that people suggested was stuff around food. Not quite sure how we're going to do that. And want to establish priorities and put together an action plan, which kind of links in really with that number 4 there. Okay. So we also asked people, did they want the workshop to be a whole day or a half day? And it was a bit, well, it was a 55-45 split, but significant enough for that people say they could only do a half day, that we need to take that into consideration. So what we're going to plan to do is to divide it into 2 halves, so that the second half is more around how do we work together, and the first half is more educational and kind of people learning from each other. So the draft agenda so far, oh no, hang on. And did people want to have an evening event? And there was an overwhelming support for an evening function. And I'll come back to that in a bit because it's going to be fun. Okay. Yes, these were other things that people said. So it would be good to see WCA operating more as an umbrella group for those in the Salisbury area, but I think anywhere. And there might be some work done around kind of bringing groups more closely together to draw in as many viewpoints as possible on the day, to provide a board and post-it notes and some questions around climate change. Have discussions in smaller groups. I think we probably will do that. If all day need lunch, yes, we're going to try and sort that. And there, local beef, that's right. Talking about COP, and also, hang on. Computer's playing up a little bit. I think it's operator. And key will be to invite wider group membership. We don't always hear about what we're doing, and I think that's going to be what the evening session's about. So as I was saying, we're looking to kind of split the day into 2 halves. The first day, we're basically, the doors are open at 10 o'clock with a view for 10:30 start, tea and coffee, introduction. Then ideally, and this is where I'm going to be asking you guys in a minute, we'll have up to about 5 10-minute updates from member groups. So anything that you feel that your group has been doing really well and that is worth sharing with other members, we'd like to have little 10-minute presentations from those groups that feel that they fit that bill. Nick Murray is then going to give an update on the place stuff. I think Nick might be on. Is he on the call yet? I'm not sure.
I don't think so.
No, I think he's going to be joining a bit later on. But that's all about looking at neighbourhood plans and how we can influence and so on. So that'll be quite an interesting one. There's quite a lot of requests for involving young people. So we're going to have try and gather some good examples of where young people have been recruited into some of our member groups and to see how you can do that. I'm going to try and speak with Wiltshire Council and Community Foundation and other people like that to try and get them along. Then we'll have lunch. Then the second half is more around working together to agree our priorities together and to combine efforts and put together action plans. So this is kind of more about trying to kind of being stronger together through kind of combined effort. So that's the end. And if people want to join halfway through at the lunchtime point, that's fine. Okay. So what can you do? Let us know if your group would like to talk. That's the important bit, if you could. And then book a place as soon as possible. And I'm just going to stop sharing for a minute. I'm just going to stop sharing because I want to put this I'm going to put this link in the chat and ask people to visit that as soon as possible and book a place. I tell you why we really could do with knowing how many people are coming, because we've got a choice of a couple of rooms. Okay, so there's a big room at Devizes at the Corn Exchange, or there's a small room upstairs. It's going to cost us more to have the bigger room. If we only get 20 or 30 people coming along, we'll book the room upstairs. But if there's going to be more than that, then we'll use the room downstairs. So the more people book early and tell us that they're coming along, the better. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to sharing the screen again. Okay, so a lot of people said they would quite fancy having an evening session, and on further thought, we thought we would make it a fundraising fun time. So we're thinking that we'll the workshop bit finishes about 5:30. People can linger if they want to. They can go home, get changed, come back, or whatever. But it'll be basically in the same venue. We've booked a band called Seize the Day. They're fantastic. I did the sound for them. I'm a sound engineer, by the way, sometimes. And I did the sound for this band, and they were superb. They've played at Glastonbury and Big Green Gathering and so on, and they were really good. The musicianship is really good, and they're fun, and they are very green, very kind of protest songs and things like that, but really good musicianship, really enjoyable. So I'm hoping lots of people might come to that. We might try and have a comedian as well to come along to make it fun. Looking at having a bar, looking at having food available. So we're hoping that members can make a party, invite your friends, come along, have a good evening. We might have an auction of promises, which I'll so to try and raise funds. So, for example, I run a sound and lighting company. I might, promise to provide a sound system for free, and people can then auction that off or whatever. So that's what we're looking at. And so that's where they played at Salisbury, and that was Salisbury Transition City, enjoying the band and at the end of the gig. So it was good fun, and basically kind of invite your friends and enjoy. So I'll stop sharing. That's about it. Any questions about that? We've got a working group that's meeting every couple of weeks. That's kind of helping to kind of put together the agenda and do some marketing and so on. See, Julie's here, Julian's on there, and so is Andrew, and anybody else. Graham's helping, I think, and so on. So we've got a few people on the working group, but we will be looking for volunteers to try and help kind of set up and so on. Have I forgotten anything, Julie? Have I, or anybody else? Any questions? Food could be raised profile food bank, possibly. Yes, that's a good idea, Gordon. What's that? Andrew, Seize the Day came out of Britain's road protest movement. Yeah, that's right. That's it. They did. That's where they were born out of. But they're really entertaining, and as I say, really professional musicians. So I loved it. Oh, Julian.
Yeah, thanks. I was only going to say the key thing is going to be to get people there, especially to the daytime part of the event. And so it's a question of all groups inviting all their friends and encouraging people to join the join WCA or join their local group and come along. It's really going to make a difference. We need to take every opportunity to try and get our membership active and grow it.
On that point, just to that point, our groups decided to rent a minibus, get a minibus together so that we can all go together, and that obviously helps to avoid people dropping out as well at the last minute. So,
yeah. Julie, that's a really
they can't leave. They can't leave until we all get.
Yeah, that's great. That's really good. And what we're hoping is that the various different member groups that we have, so Bradford, Avon, Devizes, Chippenham, and anything else. Each kind of put together a delegate, a group of delegates to come along to it, and hopefully enjoy the evening do as well. So yes, how does that sound, people? Does it sound all right? Thumbs up, thumbs up. Yes, good. Yeah, good. So hopefully we'll see how it all goes, really. But it would be really helpful for planning purposes if people click on that link, and if that it's the kind of thing that you're going to go to, click on that link, book a place, and it just gives us a heads up, yeah, that people are going to be taking this up. And we can send you out information and so on. It's literally a 20-second form to fill in with just your name and details and stuff like that. Thank you very much. Back over to if anybody's got any questions, I'll back over to Graham, I think, or Adam, or whoever's chat. Yeah, I think it's Graham. Graham.
Yeah, I think it's me.
Yeah.
Just to note Sophie's point in the chat as well. Delegates might be a bit intimidating.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. What should we call them? Members? People coming along. Yeah, that'll do.
Party goers.
I think I know what you mean, and that's a good point. I'll have to try and moderate that. Audience. Yeah. Participants. Yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
Friends.
friends. That'll do. Yeah. Anyway, I think it should be a fun day all day, but quite serious as well. And I think the bottom line is, so I'm going to wrap it on a little bit more. It's, people join groups and so on because they want to make a difference. They want to bring about change, and it's much better to get us all together. It's the way that we're going to bring about change. So it's whilst I'm being all a bit light-hearted and having a bit of fun about it, it's why we all joined our groups. Why we became a member of WCA is because we want to be bring about change by working together, and this is what this is all about, really. So bring your friends. Climate allies. Yeah. Anyway, that's it. Enough of that. I'll shut up. Thank you, Graham.
Okay, right. Next item on the agenda. Chris mentioned. Sorry, Adam.
Yeah, so I was going to cover this one because Nick's not able to be
here.
Oh,
right. If you're covering it, that's great because you're probably more into it than I am.
Yeah. Shall I go for it? Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
Good evening, everyone. So Place is the thing I'm going to talk about, which is a joint project with the Centre for Sustainable Energy, GCSE, that Christian just mentioned. We'll be covering it in more detail on the agenda of the workshop we've just been talking about. But just to whet your appetite about it, PLACE stands for Planning Locally to Address the Climate Emergency. And it's a project that CSE have got some funding for, starting now really, to look at the planning system and how local communities and community groups can get more involved in the planning system to help it address the climate emergency. So essentially, what they're talking about is local plans and neighbourhood plans and so on. So it's very, very relevant for us, particularly in the context of the next draft of the Wiltshire local plan coming out, we believe, sometime next year, but potentially even sort of Q1 next year. So in which case this would be very, very timely. So the background is that most local plans don't really acknowledge the challenge of delivering net zero and so on. And the idea of this is to develop best practices around how communities can get engaged in that development process. So they're talking about collaboration with communities, developers, landowners, and other interested parties, and how community groups can get engaged with that. So the specific aims of the project is to build the capability of local people to use the planning system as a key lever of local change, and doing this by increasing knowledge and understanding amongst climate action networks, in other words, us lot, and local community organisations and activists of the role of the planning system and how it works, and by co-creating action plans with climate action networks, organisations and activists to build wider and more meaningful consent in their local communities through their ability to influence local planning policy. So that's the objective. Sounds, I mean, right up our street. I mean, it couldn't be more relevant to what we're about in terms of our role of engagement with Wiltshire Council around local plans and indeed neighbourhood plans in more local areas. That's at this stage, that's all we know about the project. So it's quite high level objectives. Nick and I should be attending a briefing session on this on Friday, so we'll find out more detail about it then. And I'd imagine it will kick off early in the new year. So by the time we get round to that February session, we'll have a lot more to say about it, and possibly even at the members' meeting on the 4th of January, which is our next main full meeting. So it's definitely something we want to get local groups engaged in once we know more about how they're planning to run it. CSE are planning to run it. So very exciting project, I think, and great that that we were selected to be part of it, because it's completely national. It's certainly not just Wiltshire. It's CSE based in Bristol, but they have a national coverage. So we don't know the full scope of it, but it's certainly quite significant, I think. So that's a great piece of work, and hopefully will really help us find out more about how to engage with councils and so on local plans. That's all I had to say about that. I don't know if anyone's got any questions, anyone's aware of it at all. So I can see Jess has her hand up.
Hi, yeah, I just wondered, did they talk about the I think is it the Countryside Community Planning Alliance at all?
I haven't seen that mentioned in the briefings that I've had about it so far. No.
It was just an organisation I've heard. I was listening to Women's Hour yesterday,
right.
and there was a lady who leads it. I just wondered what their feeling is about it. I think they've been accused of NIMBYism, but
Right.
the lady yesterday was trying to argue that they were coming at it from trying to be local and green and
Okay,
all of that. So I was interested.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I mean, at the trust, we've got someone in post, like our Nature Recovery Network is doing a lot around planning. That's more for kind of green spaces and stuff. But on that page, we're also going to have some information for groups and who want to respond to planning. And so I think it sounds like it could tie in with that. Or yeah.
I mean, as I say, we'll know more shortly. But I think in groups like Wiltshire Wildlife Trust would definitely be a good one to involve in it.
Yeah, no, so definitely interested. Thanks, Adam, and any updates or anything about it?
Sure, we will be showing those, yeah. Okay, good. That was nice and brief. Shall I move on to the next item, which is also me? If Graham's happy for me to move on.
Yeah, sorry, I've just unmuted. Please do, I'll mute.
Thank you. Yeah. Right, so I've spoken at the last meeting or so about developing PR campaigns around key topics. So a few of us, Julie, Sophie, Nick and myself have been getting together to plan that. We chose 3 topics, wind, solar and active transport. And I'm delighted to say that even though we haven't issued a press release, the government have already caved in on the first 2. So we've, it's probably the most effective PR campaign ever. I can't take all the credit for that, I have to say, but we chose, as it happens, a bit of background on that. We chose wind and solar because obviously, if you've been following this, there's been an awful lot of debate around those lately. So on wind, there was, first of all, the Truss administration were going to remove this planning ban. And then when Sunak came in, he said, no, I'm not going to. And then there was this backbench revolt, and now they've caved into that. Apparently, although obviously that's just been announced today, and the question is, what will the actual new regime look like? They have said, if those who are familiar with this know that there are 2 parts of the previous ban. One was any new turbine had to be specifically provided for in a local plan or a neighbourhood plan. So it would need something like Wiltshire Council to actually build it into a local plan. And we know how incredibly complex and long-term those planning processes are. And the second one, that it needed overwhelming local community support. In other words, what that's been interpreted is if one local person objected to a planning application, then it wouldn't go through. And no other planning development of any sort that goes through the planning process would ever face such an onerous type of barrier. But that's what's been in place for the last, it was 2015, so 7 years been in place. What they've now said today is that they will remove the first bit, the requirement for it to be in a local plan, and consult on the second bit. So what the mechanism will be won't be known until probably April next year. And indeed, the change on the first bit won't be put in place then. So it's still a relevant topic. What we'll do is modify the point of view that we were developing. And in a way, it's even more relevant now, given they've sort of said there's going to be some change, to get the right messages across about how that second element should be changed. Because if there's still an effective veto, NIMBY veto there, then we're not going to see any more onshore wind. So it's still an important issue to be looking at. On the solar, again, going back to the Truss administration, they were going the opposite way with solar. So they were making noises about redesignating grade 3B land as prime agricultural land and therefore prohibiting solar development on that. And Sophie will know a lot more detail about it, but 3B land is a huge area of agricultural land that is relatively low grade, and that typically is the sort of land that solar goes on. So if they redesignated, that would effectively kill the ground-mounted solar industry. And there was some suggestion that Sunak was inclined to continue with that, because he was talking about don't build them on prime agricultural land. But today they've said that Theresa Coffey has just said that they won't be redesignating that 3B land. Again, detail to follow, and that's quite a good one. But that, again, I think there's still a lot to be campaigning on solar, in particularly dispelling these very pervasive myths about ground-mounted solar being a threat to agricultural production and a threat to food security, which it just absolutely isn't. But that's the sort of myth that is very, very pervasive. The third area is something that Nick is leading on, and obviously builds on the great work that the transport topic group have been doing around active transport. And this is both of those two are obviously relevant to Wiltshire in the sense that we want wind and solar in, or we should have more wind and solar in Wiltshire. But active transport specifically goes around the failure of Wiltshire Council to bid for any money for development of cycle networks and active transport. And there's another round of that coming up in the first quarter next year. So Nick will be helping us develop a point of view to put across in PR to encourage Wiltshire Council to get their act together on that. So those are the three areas that we'll be covering. And so you should be seeing more on that quite shortly. I don't know if Julie or Sophie want to add anything to that overview. Sophie.
So on the wind side, I would say it is great news what they announced yesterday, although the price for both the changes in policy seems to be the planning approval for a coal mine in Cumbria, but there you go, the way it works. But on the wind consultation, it's a great opportunity for us all to feed into the consultation, as you said, Adam, in terms of what they mean by community consent, and provide some guidance to all our members as to what sort of things we should be saying. And I would think it would start by saying not requiring community consent or requiring it. I don't know, but or making sure that projects deliver benefits to people rather than just measuring the number of objections that you get. And then on the solar thing, I think, as you say, it's that we've still got that particular policy problem might have gone away, but we've still got an issue with opinions and particularly among Wiltshire Council and so on. And the other issue that affects both wind and solar, which we can try and raise some awareness of, is the lack of grid capacity. So even with a really supportive planning policy on wind, we're unlikely to be able to build many turbines in Wiltshire unless there's a serious amount of investment brought forward quickly to increase capacity for connecting to the grid.
Thank you, Sophie. Yeah, good points. So that's where we're at with that. Any other comments from anyone? Julie, did you want to?
Yeah, I was just going to say that given that things have moved on a bit with maybe the emphasis now needs to be not so squarely. I know we always need to message central government and local government, but we also need to deal with these to quash rumours out there, like the food security issue and so on, and try and engage with people proactively at the grassroots level on social media and so on, and try and do some more tactical stuff like that, which is what I've been looking at a lot recently, and I'm starting to get a bit of engagement through. So I think, you know, that is sort of a new thing that we can look to do to hopefully, you know, dispel some of these myths and debunk them.
Yeah, certainly. And I think that grassroots engagement, particularly around the wind consultation process, would be a great way, as we've done successfully before, I think, with local consultations. Andrew, you were next.
Yes, on active travel, I don't think Transport Topic Group can claim much of the credit other than introducing people to each other, because now an autonomous subgroup, Wiltshire Town Cycling Network Alliance or something, has taken the bit between its teeth and is forging ahead correspondence with Wiltshire. I've helped put a couple of pieces of background information into Active Travel England to help them reality check Wiltshire's performance. Clearly, we can see that it's political because councillors Clure and McClelland are anti anything that takes road space away from cars or parking, and anti anything that slows cars driving through back streets. So there's a lot to be fought for. And on a general point, I wonder if we can do a little bit to make a bit of synergy with all this media activity. Wouldn't it be great to see some more harmless street theatre in the coming year? You know how the Bristol Airport lot have fantastic processions, and I think that does help their cause. They come to Keynsham, they come to Bath and so on. So that's something I'd like to see us suggesting maybe at the workshop and promoting in the coming year. Thanks.
Okay, Graham.
Yeah, just to pick up on where Andrew is. So the organisation, sort of semi-autonomous organisation Andrew referred to, is the Wiltshire Cycle Network. It went autonomous because it wanted to separate itself out and present itself as trying to be a partner to work with Wiltshire Council to overcome some of the issues, and also provide them sort of some extra muscle, as it were, with doing bids, completing local cycling and walking infrastructure plans. It is a little bit of an exercise of banging your head against a brick wall. And I think what we'd have to do is attack it almost community by community. So at the risk of sort of going Devizes, at the area board, we got the area board to say that preference would not be given to the car. That's not quite the same as the car shall not be impeded, and it was caveated on a case-by-case basis. But the area board for any of transport plans within Devizes are on a little bit of a hook. And the other thing that they're doing that we might want to look at in a slightly wider context is that the area board is sponsoring an active travel and transport event in March for Devizes. So we've got a bus survey going on, we've got the LC whips, we've got a lot of local groups who are hoping to pull together to form some sort of consensus about how it goes forward.
Great, that sounds good. Well, we'd certainly tap into that. Throw you sort. Julian, you had a point.
Thanks. I was really only going to ask, as I did in the chat, you know, now those first two are sort of mainly achieved, I was just wondering if you could sort of move the emphasis to something like retrofit and possibly also food targets, which seem, you know, transport, energy and food seem to be the three big ones to me. Just wondered what your thinking was.
I mean, I was probably being a bit glib about the first two. I don't think they're massive. I mean, they're certainly not achieved in terms of the wind is not in any sense resolved. So I think we should carry on with that. It may be that we could pick up another one. I mean, clearly the three we've chosen are not completely comprehensive. There are many other big issues, and you're right. Retrofit is and food on our longer list, and retrofit is very relevant with the very limited additional funding that's just been announced. But yeah, I mean, we'll certainly think about that. It's a question of capacity. So if anyone, you know, feels passionately about any of those other items and wants to get involved in writing PR copy and helping plan campaigns, let me know. You know, there's 4 of us at the moment, so you know, I think we just have limited capacity on that. Thanks, everyone. I think, Graham, I'm probably going to have to cover the next item because Bill called me just before the meeting and said that unfortunately he can't join us. He's got a family issue just kicked off. So, Graham, you're muted still.
Go for it. We're making frantic efforts to contact Phil. Bill.
As I say, I probably should have said earlier. He called me about 5 minutes before the start and said, "Would I mind covering it?" And said he'd send me an email, but I haven't actually got the email.
We'll make it up then.
Well, I know half of it anyway. The 2 things he was going to cover were the anniversary event at the Wiltshire Council full council meeting, and also the incinerator, an update on the incinerator appeal inquiry that's going on at the moment. I can cover the first one. So many of you will have been at these previous events, but on the 21st of February, it's the full council, Wiltshire Council full council meeting, and it will be the 4th anniversary of their declaration, their acknowledgement of the climate emergency. Many of us were there in 2019 and have been there on the anniversary ever since. We usually have a big, quite visible demonstration outside the venue, and we're planning to do the same thing again with samba bands and speakers and so on. Friendly but noisy, I think, is the the aim we're trying to achieve. So it's very visible. So the councillors see us and engage with us as they're going in. And then what we're also planning to do, as we have done before, is to submit a number of sort of very pertinent questions in advance so that we get to raise those questions in the public question time part of the full meeting. So it's very much the same as we've done before. I mean, obviously the clock's ticked over another year now. We're now 4 years into what was sort of I guess a 10-year plan, you know, with the aim 2030. So and I think we can all say see that very little has happened since then. So so two takeaways from this. Firstly, do come along. We'll obviously be sending out more details about exactly where and when, but it's definitely 21st of February in Trowbridge County Hall. The demonstration will be before the main meeting, so which I think kicks off usually about 10 o'clock or something. Christian may be about to correct me on that, but no. And come along, and if you've got questions, obviously you can, any member of the public can submit their own questions, so encourage people to do that. We don't want it just to be WCA, but it would be also good to coordinate those as well, so as many people responding as possible. So we'll be starting to collate those together over the next few weeks, preparing for that. And it's a couple of weeks after the workshop and social event as well, so we'll probably have a chance to talk about that at the workshop as well, I think. Yeah, I don't know anything, unfortunately, about the incinerator inquiry that's going on at the moment. It would have been great to have the update from Bill, but doesn't look like it's going to come through in time, unfortunately. So unless anyone else was there and knows about it, I think we'll have to cover that at a subsequent meeting. Christian, do you want to add something?
No, just for that rally that we're having. Around about this time last year, that report came out that put Wiltshire top of the league, or Wiltshire Council top of the league for being fantastic at dealing with climate change. And our reaction to that, that's all fair enough. But we want to see action and so on. And there was, do you know where they are with coming out with the second round of that report? Anybody know? You know where they put them top
Yeah,
of the
good point, because I can't remember what time of year, but it was out before the full council last time, wasn't it? So it should be.
It's about this time of year.
Should be. Yeah, it should be right now. Yeah.
So that'll be quite useful to see that when it comes
Yeah.
out. And the other one is, kind of let's get as many people as possible there. Last time we had the Samba band. I'm not quite sure who the contact was, but that made a lot of difference to the general noticeability of us. Who was it? Was that Bill? Was it? I don't know. Anyway, but
Brig.
Brig.
was it Brig? Was it?
I think it was Brig.
Maybe down the Salisbury XR then. That lot. I'll if that's the case, I'll make contact, because I want to need to make contact with them on the workshop things. So yeah, good. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on the rally? I think it's definitely one to mark in the diary. Okay. Keith, who I have seen lurking around. There he is, waving. Are you going to give us a quick update on your sterling efforts on the business analysis and how we might take that forward? Great. Okay.
Yeah, I will.
Over to you.
And I've got about 3 or 4 slides, but I don't seem to be able to share my screen. So the host is preventing me from sharing screen. If someone can let me.
Julian will fix, I'm sure. So I can't see Julian.
Oh, I'm allowed now. That's good.
There you go.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, hang on a minute. Accept. Gone. Started at the wrong end. Can people see a screen that's got Wiltshire Climate Alliance at the top? Yes. Okay. And you can hear me. Okay. Good. Right. I'll be really quick. This is an update on the project I've been running under the business engagement team, where we decided that we would first investigate what our Wiltshire firms actually doing in terms of policy and actions before we went out and started trying to knock on doors and influence change and collaborate with other groups in the county. It falls into 3 main phases, and we pretty much gave ourselves from about March, April to get together a team of researchers and do some actual research into what firms are about. We had to develop a methodology, come up with a scoring system, come up with a way of getting all those answers down, come people who do the job. I've talked about that before. We've just really much completed all the research, and we're getting on with the analysis now with a view to having that done by the end of this month. Collaboration is the other major thing. This isn't something where WCA could just go out and start engaging with firms around Wiltshire and expect them to change. We need to work with other interested bodies, which might be Business West or Swindon Local Enterprise Board or Wiltshire Council or Chambers of Commerce, whoever. We need to get those relationships going. We're on with that. And engagement, point 3, is the most important bit, I think, because that's what's likely to actually drive change when you start communicating with a firm and influencing decision makers and getting them to have a rethink. Already there's a slight indication that if some local stakeholders get hold of a firm and say, we've spent loads of time researching you, are you interested in hearing our views? Some surprisingly say yes, and you get on to a bit of engagement, which is good. Point 2, and so the main thread here is get the research and analysis done by the end of this year, and then get on with some collaboration and engagement next year. That's the loose plan. Where are we up to? This was a review I did earlier today. We got a list of 50 firms way back. We got on with doing all the research between July and November. We originally managed to recruit 13 volunteers who all said they were really keen and prepared to do a load of work. Key lesson there, we've now got 5 people who are still working hard. But what a group of 5 excellent volunteers who do work really hard and have delivered loads. The benefit of having a small team, you get really consistent quality, and you know the sort of the way it's been delivered and the consistency is great, which means the peer review that we do of all these assessments is relatively straightforward because the quality is good. Where are we up to? Big tick, all 50 firms have been researched and assessed. We've got all the data, they've all been scored on the forms, and we've got a load of information we've collected about those firms. All except one have had a peer review by one of the other researchers to check that the individual researcher who did the lead assessment did it consistently. So we've met the goal that we moved a bit to finish it all by the end of November. I'm very happy about that. And also, thanks very much to the guys who worked really hard. It's been a great job. Next things to do. We're already on with making contact with all the firms we've already assessed. We felt it was fair and just to say to companies, we've assessed you externally. We've given you a score in terms of your policy and actions and performance. Would you like to just tell us whether we've got this right or wrong, or point out any huge mistakes we've made? And if that gets the engagement going, great. If they don't come back, at least we've given them the chance to say, oh, you've got that wrong, Pete, or that's the wrong data, or you've looked at the wrong website altogether. You know, that would be a big error. So we're doing that. That should be done by the end of the month. At the moment, the work is really focusing in what do we need to do to produce a professional looking report. So we've been doing a lot of work to analyze the quantitative data, because every single question we asked, I think there were 25 or 30 separate questions, has a score against it between 0 and 10. So that gives you 50 lots of 25 numbers that you can start playing around with and analyze. So we're doing some work on that. And we're trying to ask the key questions that the data needs to provide evidence for. Testing the hypothesis, I think that was called when I was a student. That seems to be pointing us in some useful directions, but I won't spend ages on that because that's coming out next. And then after that, get out what we think the main conclusions and findings are. What are the useful threads? What will other collaborators be interested to know? And what does that actually mean? If there's a sort of snapshot, where is Wiltshire at in terms of business activity on climate emissions? Where are the hot points? Where are the bad points? Where's nothing happened? Where could we best bring about some change by focusing the efforts of an organisation like ourselves? I reckon we could have something drafted at the end of this month into early next month that we get a couple of members of the steering group to have a look at and see if it stands up to muster of looking professional and well produced and worthy of having the WCA brand name on it. And then we crack on really, which is get the report finished off and published. I'd love to have some sort of report going out towards the end of January, maybe early February. And I'm tending towards thinking that some sort of online launch webinar might be quite good, probably in the daytime, because most of the interested people will be business type organizations who might want to log into a webinar. That seems to be how people launch reports these days. So that's an idea which I'm beginning to warm towards, but I'm open enough to someone to tell me that's a really bad idea if they don't think it's good. And then February, March and April, we've launched a report. We've hopefully shown some credibility with people we want to collaborate with, and therefore we can start working with them to actually engage, start delivering change. And we have to have a plan there. Where we're going to focus our efforts, where we'll get most bang for our buck in terms of bringing about change. I mean, as an aside, I've sort of got involved with the local Malmesbury Council town team at the moment. They've asked me to come and be their sustainability supporter on the group. And they're really, really interested in that Salisbury Green Business Award that's being driven by Eva McHugh and a colleague down in Salisbury for small retailers and small service organisations. So that's perhaps something that WCA could help to facilitate by maybe duplicating a small business green business award in different towns around the county. Right. Just to give you an idea, some of the numbers we've already got a picture of all the different types of firms and what they look like. We've got a spread of what the sort of size of firms are that we look like. And I know that Graham Wise, who's doing a load of work on this, has got umpteen other diagrams that are supported by the data that we hope will make it look like a proper piece of science and not just a load of crackpots with some crazy ideas about what businesses should do. Next things we're going to do, I'm keen for anybody to suggest to me, these are some key stakeholders we should engage with. And if anybody has got really good existing relationships with any of those groups, it's always much easier to build a relationships if you have a good introduction. That's part 1 and 2. I've still really not, I think, found out or set up a relationship with who at Wiltshire Council sees this business engagement as part of their responsibility. Oh no, my daughter's ringing me from Canada. Sorry, it's all right, I'll just switch her off. So if there's anyone who can help on that, I'd be grateful. One key moment that I have in when I'm feeling a bit down, if we do a load of research and it doesn't actually generate any significant action for change, all we've done is produce a report that is slightly academic but doesn't deliver anything. I'm sure that won't be the case. And then this thing about what could we support and offer micro businesses, because I think a lot of what we're already seeing is the smaller the firm is, the less likely they are to have done a great deal on policy and management of climate change. And then the other thing really is, as we move into this, it could become an ever expanding amount of work, and we'll obviously need more people who want to get involved and people who've got the right mindset and skills to go out and engage with companies and drive change. I'll stop now because I've talked long enough. That's who I am, that's my contacts. Any questions?
Andrew.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, that's brilliant, Keith. And I'm jealous of your team building and team handling expertise. And I've already asked you if I can pick your brains about that.
Yeah.
Swindon and Wiltshire LEP is very crucial. And I know that some organizations like CPRE diligently go to their meetings. I just look, I'm putting a link in the chat. I've just looked at some of the projects they've done, and you start adding up the numbers. Maybe over the past few years, they've spent £200 million on road building schemes, maybe £10 million on active travel and public transport schemes put together. So they are kind of the businessy wing of Wiltshire Council in a way, getting government money, banging it into a 20th century idea of economic development. And the more we start to breathe down their necks by turning up at their board meetings and this and that and the other, and the sooner, I think the better. So if that's a strand of what you'd be able to do. The other thing I wanted to ask was whether a few of us who want to make this request, perhaps who've done research and analysis before, as I have, could take a look at the samples of your assessments and have a think whether there's anything we want to ask you or suggest to you about the analysis stage.
Yeah, that would be good. I'm sure that if people are interested, we could enable them to share the big data set of all the 50 different assessments we've done. You know, the work to actually look at the numbers is a sort of piece of statistics, but making sure that you only do valid things. The work to look at all the qualitative comments that have been made by the assessors is just really a bit of a slogging through it at time. But I do personally find we asked each assessor to do a nice little paragraph of what their overall assessment is, which is a bit like what you used to get written on your school report by your tutor, who, if all your dad wanted to do was find out what you'd been like, they'd read those few words. You know, Keith could do better if only he could behave himself in class, was pretty much what I got. So they're really interesting for firms, because you're looking at what someone has distilled out after maybe a day and a half's work of slogging away looking at the boring stuff. I think it's quite interesting, those conclusions. How we extract the learning point from those conclusions in a meaningful way is a bit of a challenge at the moment. Okay. So yes, already I think there's an offer certainly from some of the steering group to look at the report. But if you want to look at the current status of the data, I think we could arrange that. So let me know. Okay, Kate.
Well done. I mean, gosh, what a piece of work. I'm really thorough. I'm very impressed what you've achieved. Amazing. Thank you. I'm just trying to sort of think about sort of simplifying this. At one point, we discussed the Pareto principle of taking this focus on reducing CO2 production as being the actual end game that we've all got to try and do. Is there any evidence in the data yet that we've got 20% of the firms we've looked at producing 80% of the CO2? And that's the 20 we should concentrate on. Or is it looking like lots and lots of little small businesses, which, as you say, makes it much more difficult to communicate?
Good question. I believe there's pretty strong evidence that certainly larger organisations are responsible for the vast majority of climate emissions. On a global basis, I've seen that in an organisation called Climate 100 Plus, who are assessing the 100, the 100 biggest firms in the world. And I feel that based on the fact that organisations above a certain size set by UK government are the only ones who are legally required to make regular energy and carbon reporting data, they're the firms who've tended to get on and at least do something. Plus the fact they tend to be firms who rely on external investments and people to buy their shares. So they have to do a really good job to present the fact that they're doing something. And they tend to be vast. You look at what you think is a small Wiltshire firm making cereals in Melksham or tyres, and when you drill into it, you find that they're part of a global organisation. So the breakfast cereal company in Melksham is part of Nestle. So I think we can say larger firms are responsible for the vast amount of carbon emissions. That's probably true for Wiltshire. But the feeling I get is that the chances of success as a small local organisation trying to engage directly with one of these mega global organisations is also going to be pretty damn small. I can't imagine knocking on the door of Nestle saying, a few of us in Wiltshire have had a look at you, could you listen to what we've got to say? So what I've yet to conclude from that is, will it feel more beneficial to try and bring about change on a local basis? Get all the shops in the high street in Malmesbury doing things like switching their energy provider, recycling their packaging waste, looking at their supply chain? Or is there a section in the middle where we might get more benefit? So a good question. I don't actually have the answer yet. I think that's where we are.
Okay, Alan.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant piece of work, very thoroughly organised and as we say, wonderful team to build up and have that energy and done in the methodology sounds very interesting. It'll be interesting to look at the analysis taken, but I just was interested in the notion of the awards, and you mentioned the Salisbury Green Business Awards, and it would seem to me that on the basis of this report, because it's been done so thoroughly and methodologically sound, we could base some awards on the report itself, and in effect have a WCO Green Business Award on the basis of this report, and that could be the first, and something could be repeated on an annual basis, and you could have different grades of award, like silver and gold awards, and that would encourage other firms to get involved and see if they could get a nice logo badge of approval, which they could display in their front office, as it were, and that would be quite a way of motivating other firms to get involved. But of course that does involve it does mean a lot of work, and where I've been involved in other awards, they've often had had the firms put in an entry fee to take part in the whole thing, and that may come at a later stage. But yeah, just basically saying, can we use this report to set up an award scheme which would help to encourage more firms to become greener?
That's a positive idea that I hadn't really thought about. I must admit, the more I look back at the way that we came up with a methodology for assessing and scoring these firms, I actually think that, considering it was a first stab, we didn't do too bad. So we've come up with a set of questions in quite a structured layout, which, if a firm could address all of the 5 or 6 sections that we've got with 4 or 5 questions each one, it seems to me quite a nice tool for actually giving a fairly succinct answer. Has this firm done a pretty good job of addressing and managing the way they're dealing with their climate impacts. You know, I would tweak it a bit, but it ain't far off. So therefore, now that we've got a team of people who've got some skills on that, I feel it would be relatively simple for us as a team who've developed that skill set to address any business in Wiltshire and quickly do an assessment. Some of them are dead easy. If there's no website, there's no policy, you search the website and it doesn't have a word like environmental, sustainable, carbon in it, and there's nobody responsible with a name like environmental manager, that's going to score really low, and they're mostly at the lower end, and we can do an assessment in the middle pretty quick. So I think we could adopt the methodology we've got to become the basis of an award system. Whether we could collaborate with someone else in the county who might want to work with on that, so that the awarder, the body that gave the award, was somehow seen to be a bit more punching valuable, I don't know. But food for thought. Thanks very much. I like that idea.
Okay. Graham had his hand. Yeah, has got his hand up.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to make one very quick point about the work that we've been doing on this business analysis. Everything that we've done has been based on surveying the open source information that we've been able to locate. So without engaging with a company, it's very difficult to understand whether what you have is a say gap or a do gap. So, you know, is a company actually doing a lot but just not talking about it? Yeah. And is a company saying a lot to paper over the fact that they're not actually really doing anything? Yeah. So part of what we're trying to sort of untangle in the work that we're doing is trying to understand whether there is a distinction between a kind of a say gap and a do gap. And if we wanted to get into the notion of sort of business awards and things, I think it would be most beneficial if the company were directly involved in the assessment, because then you don't have a distinction between a say gap and a do gap, you know, a gap between what they say and what they do. You know, if we were just sort of, you know, as we've done this time, blindly assessing 50 randomly selected companies that have some sort of footprint in Wiltshire, then you can only say what you can find out, you know, without engagement. Greenwashing, yeah, maybe a bit about greenwashing, maybe a bit about green hushing even. You know, I think we're starting to see a little bit of evidence from some of the work I've done today that there might be a number of larger companies out there in Wiltshire that are probably more active than they're saying to their public.
Okay.
Good point, Graham. Although immediately that spots it from my mind. Would you want to give an award to a company that said, we've done loads of stuff, please come and assess what we've done, but we're not going to tell anyone about it? That's sort of,
yeah. Well, this is the whole
really
point,
struggle
isn't
with that.
it?
I think if you're doing stuff to save the planet and keep all your stakeholders happy, you've changed your purpose, your delivery, your focus, your supply. You've done all that, but for some reason you want to keep it secret.
Yeah, well, that's the whole point. Yeah, well, that's the whole point, isn't it, Keith? Is if we wanted to, you know, follow up on that previous suggestion with the idea of sort of getting involved with, you know, business awards, I think that would be best served as a consequence of direct business engagement.
Yeah,
I'd agree with that one.
Rather than some sort of blind survey.
Not to people who think they've got a load of good numbers but don't want to share them with the outside world. Anyway, there's too much detail. We better stop because we're talking too long for a 5-minute item. But I'm glad people like it. That makes me feel quite good about all the hours we've spent so far.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about the level of actual engagement and support to give businesses, because it's one thing them sort of filling out a survey or something like that, but then a lot of them just maybe don't have the time or don't have any, they're going to need support on this journey, and that's probably where a lot of kind of manpower hours or whatever, people power hours need to go. And the other thing is about just in terms of also making sure that they then don't use any award as kind of a greenwash and be like, right, okay, we've done it. But especially if you can't actually measure how much carbon they are saving, if they actually still have quite a way they need to move to really have reduced emissions.
Can I just cut in there then before Julie? Because I think, Jess, you're probably particularly looking at smaller and micro businesses around Wiltshire. Yeah. Well,
in my work, or I'm currently internal facing.
No, I appreciate that, but are you referring to your comments about
sure,
business struggling? Okay, so Shropshire, in fact, I think it's the Shropshire Climate Group, did a piece of work with the Centre for Alternative Technology, their zero carbon group, and they looked specifically at small businesses and micro businesses. One of the things they found was that there's just so much information out there that businesses were overwhelmed and just didn't know how to navigate their way through it. And they've done quite a use. There's a journal article, I can put a link up, which is quite a useful read if you're in this area and you're particularly looking at small and micro businesses. And I know from our experience in Devizes, we looked at two things. One of our local businesses who fronts a thing called Indie Devizes, which is a local group that came out of the sort of COVID to resurrect businesses or sustain businesses, but it's only a very paper thin organization. They subscribed and paid for a carbon survey from a consultancy, and they've done the same in Marlborough, which gives them, if you like, a tick box exercise, but also gives them goals. So that is another way to go, but you have to pay, a couple of £100 for the survey. When we looked at trying to extend that or doing our own business scheme, it is a lot of resource, and we as a small community group couldn't do that even with the support of local business. So I think the way Keith's approached it, and you're looking at bigger businesses, that's one end of the scale, and that's really great. It's a fabulous piece of work. I think if you want to engage at community level and get a spillover effect, so if you get one small business going, you'll get lots doing it. It's a lot of work, would be my observation.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the things I'm seeing here is that the type of support and the appropriateness of the tools and guidance that you give to an organization has to really match that broad micro, medium and large, because a micro business needs a really simple thing, 5 or 6 pages. What do I do with my electric? What do I do with my waste? How do I save water? Where do I buy my stuff from? Like simple stuff and simple guides, do this, bang. So that it's a very little low investment of time and resources to get awarded. Really big businesses, they're millions of pounds to spend on a global sustainability report for the biggest food company in the world. I really can't see how we're going to engage that. It's that middle ground, I think, finding the appropriate management tools and systems and things they should sign up to, which are right for their business without it becoming a right pain. And I think that's still an area where we need to do a bit of learning. So the appropriate tool and the type of award is specific to the size of the business. The Salisbury, which I'm calling it Green Business Award, but I think they're going to change it to Green Business Association, have come up with a brilliant set of guides for small businesses on places to go, what you should do, nice, friendly, easy to read basis. And they're rolling that out in January, February. So we're keeping quite a close eye on that to see what the take-up rate is with businesses in Salisbury. And then hopefully that would become something, maybe a local WCA rep could get involved with each town local council and help them roll out an equivalent small business badge or system in their town. And it has levels like bronze, silver, gold. It's quite simple to assess.
Okay,
so
Julie.
That's a future idea we could get involved in. Right, I better stop now. It's 8:10. I've had loads more time than I should.
Well, it's obviously a topic of interest, and
yeah,
Julie's been waiting there very, very patiently.
Well, it was picking up on your point actually about Keith, about the media strategy and how to go about that. And I think the key thing, you mentioned the end of January is when you're targeting to announce it. There's not a lot of time between now and then. And the key thing is really getting into the data and just defining our messaging. What is the messaging going to be around this report? And is it newsworthy? That's the first question. Got to be honest with ourselves, in order to define what approach is best, and you know, how are we going to get the most out of it? Because it might be that we'll get more out of it by using it to build relationships within the business community, a la the awards type approach, consulting approach, rather than worrying too much about media at this point in time. So, you know, it depends on what comes out of the data, but I haven't seen that yet. So, yeah, I just wanted to make that point that let's try and I'm really starting to see, as well as I'm learning more on the communications side of things, that there's an awful lot going on, and we need a proper, you know, plan. We need a nice rolling, you know, plan that is a schedule of activities for the whole of next year, so that we've got plenty of time to have input into those things, and also to share and define messaging with the whole of the organisation, so that everybody's aware of what's going on and can help to amplify those messages as well. So that's right. I'm just raising a flag to say that we need to get together and do some planning, really. But anyway, that's obvious.
Well, okay. I think it's going to take us another 4 weeks before we find out whether all we've done is proven stuff that was actually blindingly obvious. A report done shows what you would have thought, and yes, that is it. Or whether we actually get a few nice little surprises and bits of innovative, novel little gems that we could be the hook that we use to get ourselves a bit more in the media. We've got to be really careful that we don't go off down a route where we start setting ourselves up as the WCA free business consultancy service. Let us come and assess your business. We need to work, if that's a role that we have, it has to be done in collaboration with one of the existing more commercial organisation, whether that's Business West or Chambers of Commerce or which one it is. But yeah, very pleased. When we've got something, let's have a chat with you. Maybe we should present the main findings from the report back to the steering group or the members before we go public with it, perhaps.
Okay, any more questions?
It could be, you know, if you're talking end of February, end of January, it's not far from the 4th of February, which is when the workshop is. So I think it might be quite good to, I don't know, do you want to use that as a launch thing or not? Do you want to link the two together?
I thought about it, but I wasn't sure that the ethos and sort of what the day was about.
Yeah, I know. I'm not
So,
quite sure
it didn't quite fit in with what your agenda. It looked like it would be shoehorned in. Yeah. So because I think that when I do a launch event,
it might be worth just a quick 10-minute update for people, so membership, and understand what's coming and what it's all about.
Or, you know, if it has to go back a month, because Keith, as usual, is really over optimistic about what I can deliver in the given time, then so be it, you know, but all useful stuff.
I think it's definitely worth a mention at the workshop, even if it's just a 10-minute update to people know that it's happening.
Okay, put me down for that. I'll do that. I'm quite happy to do that.
Cool. I'll, yeah.
Okay. Any more questions to Keith or comments about business engagement? No. Okay. Late breaking news. Andrew, I saw an email. You have your hand up. An extra agenda item. Better make it quick.
Okay, this links in with the work Keith and his group have been doing in a way. I went to a Zoom update briefing on the annual Climate Emergency UK's Council Climate Action Scorecards. Remember that? So
we spoke about that earlier.
Okay, I had trouble getting in here. Anyway, there are volunteer opportunities. So Keith, if any of your guys have done stuff and want more to do, there's or I think we could raise this with members again. There's scoring tasks where
you've broken up, Andrew.
Where people from Wiltshire won't score Wiltshire Council, disappointingly. Scoring, FOI work, and one or two other tasks. And it'll be interesting, Keith, for you to come and everybody to compare Keith's business survey with the surveys that Climate Emergency UK have designed, to assess local authorities, which includes big councils and little councils. Have they asked the same questions and so on? Now, this time in 2023, councils will be assessed not on their plans and their fine rhetoric, but on their actions making progress on climate. So that'll be extremely interesting. It may be the only credible way that Wiltshire Council can be given a reality check. So this is a volunteering opportunity. Climate Emergency UK, I could put a link in the chat.
And to do that, did they give an indication of when they're going to release the next set of scorecards?
The draft scorecard is available to look at, and they go through a cycle through the year so that the scores are released in very late summer or around autumn time. Which of those was your question?
Wow.
Do you want to see the revised scorecard?
No, so I'm struggling because I've got a brain like a sieve. But one of the agenda items earlier, I think it was when Adam was talking, was that last year Wiltshire came out top of the pops on this scorecard.
Yeah.
And we were all aghast, amazed, and so forth. And so actually for us to understand when the next published scorecard is coming out is the benchmark by which we can say whether Wiltshire have actually progressed or not, or you know, and hold them to tasks. Christian, you were going to jump in.
Yeah, no, it was just because we were linking that in with the rally that we're doing on the 21st.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, the answer to your direct question is that scorecards will be released in autumn 2023. The questionnaire, the draft questionnaire, is more or less finalized and you can access it now. The scoring process takes months of questionnaires to councils, freedom of information requests, scoring actions, assessments, toing and froing, give councils a chance to respond to the draft scores, and it takes all year. It's an incredible undertaking by this team of 3 people plus all us, well, would be us volunteers, and they are expecting most councils to score lower this year than last year, because last year councils were scored on their plans, and Wiltshire was lucky because it had just done a very glossy, huge, detailed climate strategy.
How detailed?
Well, lots of fine words, but as you say, how detailed, and even their action plan doesn't turn out to be really detailed. But be that as it may, it had done a big glossy strategy, so they were scored on their fine words.
Okay, right. So if Andrew, you could put that in the chat, and is there any way we could put a bit on the website? Because actually it's in our interest to support these people. I went on some webinars last year when they were trying to assess the criteria and the way of presenting. And then I was deeply disappointed when I saw the output because it didn't match my reality. But anyway, okay.
The higher they climb, the harder they fall. And in the case of Wiltshire, maybe, who knows? And I put a link. I can't find yet the link to their volunteering download or something, but people can ask me about it, or they can ask them about it, or you'll find it somewhere on their website.
And I'd suggest for next steering group meeting, we ought to just have a look at this and see how we want to play that right the way through the year, because it's quite a key tool. Okay, I think we're reaching limits. Any more questions? Anybody want to chuck anything in by way of AOB or stuff that you think we might need to be aware of?
Could I just mention what I put in the chat, which is next land use meeting, which is about Christmas food on 19th of December. Do come along, 6 o'clock, and details are in the chat.
Okay, that's virtual Christmas food.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. Yeah, we're talking about what we're going to have, and you know, how good it is and not for the environment and that.
Okay, and no turkeys. Apparently they're all avian. Hazel.
I'm just aware of, sorry to go back on it, the incinerator in Westbury. You know, talk about companies, etc., and what we can do with helping them, etc. But I'm just seeing possibly the Anchor milk people are going to go down if the incinerator goes there, and then all the people on the farms are not going to have places in order for their milk to go. I just feel, what are you doing now? I know this is their last week of talks about it, but I spent a whole day, that first day, writing it all in here through when I got back home, the Zoom, etc. And there was so many real problematic problems. You know, they hadn't even had fire answers, you know, to the fire brigade. And in Essex, a similar incinerator took 4 days to 4 hours to get over a fire there. It's just so behind, and yet we seem to be just putting it aside at the moment. Is something being done?
Bill has been at the inquiry for the whole time. He was going to give us a report on it tonight, unfortunately he's not able to make it, but we have had significant input into that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? If not, I think it's time to say good evening. Have a safe and happy Christmas. And we'll see you in the new year. A diary check, because it will be the new year, be the first Wednesday.
Fourth.
Sounds to me like the 4th or 5th?
Yeah, fourth.
4th. Okay. Right.
Thank you.
4th of December. We'll be able to say Happy New Year, and it'll be still good time to say it. Okay. Have a good time. Thank you.